right, then you'll send me a thumbs up?
I'll let you know it's okay to start. Oh, I think there's Jose coming in.
Ingenious.
I think that's
I thought somebody was peering in your window
okay.
there.
Carmine, Randy says that the feed has started.
Computer.
So you're good to start.
Okay. Call the meeting to order. Statement of meeting notice. Adequate notice of this meeting was given to the public 48 hours in advance of the date, setting forth the date, time, location, and type of meeting. Notice was sent to the Daily Record, the Observer Tribune, the Washington Township Clerk, and was posted on the district website at www.WTSCHOOLS.org. Special note, as a result of the limitation placed on public assemblies due to the coronavirus, related restrictions and the governor's issuance of Executive Order 107, this meeting is being conducted via Zoom. Information regarding public viewing and comment has been placed on the district website. All please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which
it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Zoom BOE meeting tonight. I hope everyone is safe and healthy. I want to continue to thank and show our appreciation to our administrators, teachers, professional staff, custodians, nurses, and bus drivers for the efforts to maintain some semblance of normalcy within the schools as it relates to the education of our children. We will continue to provide support and encouragement to you and help make your job less stressful. Now, this month, I received my NJEA review, and there was a very interesting article. It was entitled, Long Valley Students Embrace Cultural Diversity Through Online Learning. Jeanette Azita, sixth grade Spanish teacher at Long Valley Middle School, brought up the idea of giving students of different backgrounds an opportunity to share their language and culture with classmates. The students created a plan that did not interfere with their regular school schedule. The new learning experience was enriched by the attendance of elementary and high school students. The student-led program would begin an hour prior to the regular school day. Teron Wang teaches the basics of Chinese, writing numbers, the phonetic alphabet, to his classmate. He was in Spanish class learning about family members when his teacher, Senora Azita, asked him how he say grandma in Chinese. She asked later that day if I could teach a class, and she agreed. Victoria Kukowski teaches Polish. Victoria told Senorita Azita that she spoke Polish. That is when it all started. She was so excited that she would be able to teach to her classmates. She began teaching her teacher and some students Polish. She would make lessons that would be fun and interesting. So special recognition to Senora Azita for creating a classroom environment which complements and encourages learning about the different cultures of our students. Special thanks to Mr. Polito and Mrs. Schweitzer and the staff of Long Valley Middle School for welcoming and encouraging the learning of different cultures in the school. Great job to all those involved in this wonderful teaching moment. Tomorrow is Veterans Day, so I want to wish all the veterans a happy Veterans Day, and thank you for your service. Jeff? You're on.
Thank you, Carmine. Next week marks a very special week on the national calendar, being American Education Week. And it is a time for all of us to embrace America's schools, certainly embrace our own school district, and also to recognize the care and the efforts of professional educators, of parents, support personnel, the guardians of our children in providing our young people with really quality educational experiences. This year, my goodness, most certainly it is especially fitting that we recognize everyone who plays a role in supporting the development of our community's children. We are very fortunate here in our Washington Township to honor and celebrate the unique qualities that are inherent in every child. And I know the board joins me in thanking and applauding every adult in our school and broader communities who contribute selflessly and mightily so to shaping the lives of children, providing them with rich experiences, the experiences they need as young people to learn, to grow, and to contribute to the greater good of their local community, our state, our nation, and our world. Seems to be a much brighter place with the children in it. So next week, we'll have a few surprises along the way. I'm just warning the faculty now. I'm not going to say too much, but we'll make sure that in this pandemic, we continue to honor our faculty. And next week is going to be very special for everyone who's involved in supporting our community's children. So big week next week for us. I just wanted to echo Carmine's sentiments and shine a modest spotlight on Senora Azeta, who is the subject, along with her students, of a feature article in this month's edition of the NJEA Review. We will be sure to post that article to our website tomorrow. We'll put it under district announcements. We'll put it on the LVMS website as well for all to enjoy and really catch a glimpse of what is just one example of the fine teachings and learnings that continue to emanate from our classrooms here in the Washington Township Schools. So congratulations and a special thank you to Jeanette. Now for the latest in COVID-19 related news. I wish there were none, right? We all wish there were none. But as we move forward, there is both good news and also not so good news on the current pandemic landscape. The good news, as I'm certain many of you are aware by now, is that Pfizer and BioNTech have teamed to develop a vaccine for COVID-19. There's still work to be done, but the early reports that emerged yesterday were certainly very promising. And we'll wait with bated breath and certainly welcome any positive step in putting an end to this pandemic, not only nationally, but certainly worldwide. The not so good news is that COVID-19 continues its stronghold on our nation. And here in our own Garden State, we know that the confirmed cases continue to rise, which does place our Washington Township schools in a holding pattern for now. There is no doubt about it. Just 4 weeks ago at our last board meeting, we knew New Jersey was experiencing a surge in cases about 500 plus per day. And that surge has since continued to 1,000, then to 2,000 cases a day most recently. And today, the state announced that New Jersey is now averaging over 3,877 cases a day based on the 7-day look-back period. No doubt, and I'll echo the words of our governor, we are in the midst of a surge. These are the highest levels of infection in our state since late April. As our country as our county and certainly our state continue to experience moderate activity levels, our own New Jersey Department of Health advises schools to consider a mixture of remote and or hybrid learning and even fully remote learning. We're hoping we don't have to move in that direction, but time will tell. We're hoping some of the restrictions that were put into place yesterday will help the cause here in our state. What I'm hearing, the whispers is that there will be more restrictions put into place as the state tries to safeguard its citizens the best that it can amid the pandemic. The current upward trend does serve as a stark reminder that we remain in the midst of a pandemic and that we all need to remain vigilant in our efforts to combat this awful virus. We're very comfortable with our protocols in school, but as I always share with faculty, we still have to keep our guard up at all times. We started having student movement this week in classes and art rooms and music rooms. We're starting to roll that out, and I can tell you that day one went very, very well. And I just want to thank our principals and our teachers for making that happen for our students. Both Dr. Battatori and I had a chance to visit classrooms today, and it was again heartwarming to have the kids back in those spaces. And teachers, we know you were smiling underneath those masks because we could see the smiling eyes for sure. But we're going to continue. We're going to continue to move forward. Certainly with our current VAB-AB schedule during this period of surge. We're going to be looking for a time when the county and hopefully surrounding counties and hopefully the state go back to green so that we can begin to perhaps invite more children back to school on a regular basis. But, I've been honest with folks from the start, and I'll tell you, I do not see that happening before the holidays. New Jersey has to get a handle on this surge. The nation has to get a handle on this surge. And my advice and my wish for everyone, as Carmine echoed or expressed, is to remain safe. We all make a lot of choices in our lives, and we just want to make sure that we're thinking twice before we put ourselves in any type of unnecessary harm's way. Certainly when it comes to our children, but in our families as well. As a reminder, we will have a 4-hour early dismissal day this coming Monday. That'll be the second one we've had in the past few weeks. And understand, folks, at that time, that 4-hour day, by eliminating that lunch period, it gives our teachers, our professionals, opportunities for planning and collaboration. As you can only imagine, the weekends are spent planning for teachers across our state and certainly here in our own district as they continue to make adjustments to a very different way of teaching and learning. So that time will be very valuable, and we'll be looking to do similar days in the future as well. So we can keep that continuity of instruction moving forward, but also that we can honor that this is very, very taxing work. Teachers love teaching, but it is very taxing in terms of the planning and the readiness, and everyone always wants to be at the top of their game. As we all experience the pandemic, and we know it's presented many challenges and often presented sorrow to so many people. I do hope that we all take a moment to pause and reflect on all that we're thankful for, especially this time of the year as we prepare to welcome and then celebrate the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday. And my wish to all of our staff, our faculty, our students and their families is that the Thanksgiving holiday be a joyous one. And my wish is that we all stay safe and, well connected and loved by family and friends. Carmine, I'm going to keep rolling.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah.
Because I have a legislative obligation. We usually have about one per board meeting here in New Jersey. A brief presentation. It's nothing fancy. There are no slides. It's a statement I make every year. And it has to do with the school level self-assessments that principals undertake in each of their schools relative to harassment, intimidation, bullying legislation here in New Jersey. And this data or information or self-assessment, I should say, is for the 2019-2020 school year. Each school year, the Department of Ed does require every school to undergo a self-assessment with regard to the HIB legislation, and then for school districts to report those self-assessment scores at a meeting of the Board of Education, a public meeting. The self-assessment asks each principal to rate her or his school based on the categories of policy training, staff training programs, curriculum related to HIB prevention, HIB personnel, school level reporting procedures, the investigation procedures, and overall HIB reporting. The Benedict A. Cuccinella School rated itself a 71 for last school year. The Flocktown Road Cosman School a 72. There's that spirit of competition. The Old Farmers Road School rated itself a 66, and Long Valley Middle School awarded itself a rating of 62. These scores are out of a possible point total of 78, and it's all a self-reflective exercise so schools can see what their strengths are and areas they want to certainly strengthen in the future. And rest assured that we will continue our quest to promote positive character development and certainly conflict resolution skills in all children as we strive to cultivate positive, welcoming, and safe school environments for everyone. A little bit later on in the evening, you'll hear my HIB report for the last 4 weeks since our last board meeting, and you'll see that we had no allegations. So we know we're on the right pathway, and I just want to congratulate our schools and certainly offer our support as a central office administration, certainly a Board of Education, to support our schools in any way they can to create those ideal environments.
Okay.
Back to you, Mr. Capagrasso.
Okay. I want to acknowledge that we got 29 emails for correspondence and committee reports. There was only one committee report. That's the Community Leadership Committee. The Community Leadership Committee met on Wednesday, November 4th at 3:30 p.m. via Google Meet. Present were Mr. Moore, Karen Mitchell, Kelly DeMayo, Jessica DeSico, and myself. Wording about COVID cases comes from the Department of Health. Parents and employees can be sources as well. All contact tracing is done by nurses and principals who then contact the health department. The Board of Health is only interested in receiving the contact tracing list. School leadership consults with transportation and staff to determine contacts. Principals will contact parents of all those affected before any district communication goes out to the community. We will continue with our current practice as we head into the winter season. Windows will be open as practical to increase airflow as needed. Ventilation systems at the schools are good. Buses will continue to keep windows open. The superintendent stated that children need to go outside and not adhere strictly to the 32-degree rule. As excessive cold will restrict children from going outside. Administrators in each building are responsible for making sure COVID protocols are enforced. Masks must be worn in the building unless you are by yourself. We discussed creating a BOE anonymous survey for parents, teachers, and students, grades 4 through 8, for the purpose of eliciting information from those groups. Mr. Moore will check on the policy for surveying of students, and he checked, and we have to get things approved for that. Was discussed that the Personnel Committee will be responsible for a short multiple choice survey. The Communications Committee will create one for parents, and the Education Committee will create one for students. If possible, the survey should be done in time for the December Board of Ed meeting. We discussed half days for kindergarten students. The superintendent stated possible busing implications and childcare issues for parents would create some problems. And that's it for that. Public comments on agenda items. We have one, and this individual wanted it read. It's an email. It's from Kelly Ryan, 1012 Peachtree Village in Hackettstown. My comment regarding the agenda item renaming Indigenous All Discoverers Day. I believe this agenda item should not even be discussed right now as it pertains to a holiday that has passed and would only be relevant for the 21-22 calendar. With the raising COVID numbers, the lack of communication with the administration to the staff, the governor increasing quarantine measures, this should not be a priority at this time. The board should push this item to March when it is relevant. Doing it now just makes it seem the board is not prioritizing the issues relevant to the community today. Thank you for your time and consideration. Have a great evening, Kelly Ryan. And I believe that's all we have for public comments on agenda items, which brings us to approval of the minutes. Would someone move for the October 13 regular meeting minutes to approve those?
I move them.
All right, Jessica, second. Justin? Any discussion, amendments, or anything? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? One abstention, Michelle. All right. Jessica, would you like to move education?
Education would like to move items 1 through 5.
Is there a second?
Second.
Justin? I guess roll call.
I think Jeff needs to read out on the HIB.
I thought she said 5.
Oh,
Did you mean 6 also? Or?
No, I said 1 through 5.
Okay, so you can do 6 on its own.
Yes, so I would like to address education 5. That would be to accept my report tonight, not the one I just gave, but on the number of incidences and allegations of harassment, intimidation, and bullying that occurred since our last board meeting, which was back on October 13th. And as I did share earlier, but for the record, we had no allegations, therefore no investigations and no situations at our schools at the past month.
Did we get a second?
Justin.
Oh, Justin, okay.
Mr. Kinney did. Mm-hmm.
All right, roll call.
Mr. DeGabriel.
yes.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzo.
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo.
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico.
Yes.
Mrs. Munley.
Yes.
Mr. Kinney.
Yes.
Mrs. Quinones.
Yes.
Mr. Capagrasso.
Yes. All right, education.
I only have 1 through 5 on my agenda.
There's a 6.
There was a 6, all right.
All right, well, education moves number 6.
Okay. Second. All right, Justin again. Any discussion or? No. All right, roll call again for 6.
Mr. DeGabriel.
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzo.
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo.
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico.
Yes.
Mrs. Munley.
Yes.
Mr. Kinney.
Yes.
Mrs. Quinones.
Yes.
Mr. Capagrasso.
Yes. Kelly, would you like to move finance?
Finance would like to move items 7 through 13 on the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Al, second. Any discussion on anything there? All right, roll call.
Mr. DeGabriel.
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzo.
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo.
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico.
Yes.
Mrs. Munley.
Yes.
Mr. Kinney.
Yes.
Mrs. Quinones.
Yes.
Mr. Capagrasso.
Yes. All right, Jose, would you like to move personnel?
Yeah, I'd like to move items 14A and 14B. A is Deborah Seiler, from the position of team leader. She's resigning from Long Valley Middle School effective December 1st, 2020. And give me a second. This was an addendum 14B, George Moran, music teacher, Long Valley Middle School, effective September 1st, 2020, due to retirement after 25 years of service. It does not say why Deborah is resigning, but I'm sure our superintendent would like to elaborate.
You're muted.
I was muted the whole time.
I have to throw a quarter into the can. We saluted Deborah at our last
I'll second that,
Okay.
Carmine.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
need a second. Okay, go ahead.
We saluted Deborah at our meeting last month. She announced her retirement from the profession, and we wish her well. She's excited to begin the next chapter of her life. Our latest retiree is Mr. George Moran, and we certainly want to acknowledge and thank George for sharing his love of music with the children for a quarter of a century, and we certainly wish him all the best in his retirement.
All right, roll call.
Mr. DeGabriel,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzo,
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo,
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico,
Yes.
Mrs. Munley,
Yes.
Mr. Kinney,
Yes.
Mrs. Quinones,
Yes.
Mr. Capagrasso.
Yes. All right, Jose, you want to do the rest of personnel?
Sure, Carmine. I'd also like to move items 15 through 25 under personnel.
I have a 26 on that.
Oh. Okay.
25 is the last personnel item.
Right.
Oh, no, okay.
It changed, I believe.
All right, all right. All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on anything? All right, roll call.
Mr. DeGabriel,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzo,
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo,
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico,
Yes.
Mrs. Munley,
Yes.
Mr. Kinney,
Yes.
Mrs. Quinones,
Yes.
Mr. Capagrasso.
Yes. All right, policy. I guess-
Armand, I just noticed a slight error, which I believe might be an error. We just want to make sure that the minutes reflect that the LVMS live broadcast, those are 3 people, 3 of our professionals that share that position. It says 0.666. Doesn't make sense. So I'm thinking it's 0.333 because they share a third of that position. They actually team and do a great job with LVMS live broadcast.
All right.
That'd be Kyle, Patrick, and Carol.
All right, now policy. Jeff, that's you, I guess.
Yep, absolutely.
Jeff, I believe that's 3 stipends split by 2 people. I'm sorry, backwards. 2 stipends that are split by 3 people based on the number of hours of service that they have for those 2 clubs.
Could be. We'll check it out in the morning. And I apologize if I've erred there. It just caught my eye. It's like, wait a minute. Got to turn the math mind off. Let me move on to policies. The first policies have very much to do with, family leaves and the coronavirus.
Do we need a motion? Do we need a motion for policies?
No, it's going to be a first reading.
First reading, yeah.
We still need a motion
Okay.
to read for
Thank
the
you,
first
Tracy.
time.
All right, so motion. All right, Michelle, second.
We
Jessica.
don't need a second. We just need to move them so that they're on for consideration.
So the first policy, policy 1649, the Federal Families First Coronavirus Response Act. This particular act amends the current federal Medical and Family Leave Act to permit an employee who is unable to work or to telework due to a need to care for a child under the age of 18. That would have to be a son or a daughter. If the child's school or place of care is closed due to a public health emergency, those folks would now be permitted under law to use federal medical and family leave. The second component of the policy addresses the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act. which requires employers to provide paid sick time to the extent the employee is unable to work or telework due to the employee being subject to a government-ordered quarantine or advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine, or if they are experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 and currently seeking medical diagnosis. If they're caring for an individual who has been ordered to quarantine or has been advised to quarantine, or they're caring for their own son or daughter in the school or childcare, if the school or childcare provider has been closed. So the Act provides actually up to 80 hours of for full-time employees, obviously a prorated portion of that for part-time employees based on a 2-week period. This is something our personnel department is obviously aware of, but Strauss SMA has now solidified this in a policy for its public school clients. Policy 2270, religion in schools. The policy is being revised to reference the United States Department of Ed's latest guidance, which is its 2020 guidance, which do not reflect any material revisions from the 2003 guidance. But we do have to make sure that the words 2020 appear because that's what the policy is based on, the latest guidance from the U.S. Department of Education. Policy 2622 deals with student assessment, specifically the New Jersey state learning assessments. The revision reflects the change, I'm going to say maybe a year and a half ago, in the New Jersey Administrative Code, acknowledging that the state elementary science exam did shift from grade 4 to grade 5. So the policy and the state are catching up to that for us. The policy and regulation 5111, which is the eligibility of resident and non-resident students to attend our schools. And a change is proposed in the policy to reflect the fact that New Jersey law does not permit a school district to condition student enrollment on the fact that the New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission does not have the name and address of the parent or guardian on file. Clearly, this has not been a problem for us, but it's nice to know that children cannot be turned away for that reason here in New Jersey when they show up at our schoolhouse doors. Policy and Regulation 5320. The revisions in the policy make more of a reference to additional guidance for public schools, including a school district's right to exclude children who have vaccine medical exemptions or vaccine religious exemptions. We can actually exempt children from school during a vaccine preventable outbreak or a threatened outbreak, but that has to be determined by the State Department of Health in order to do so. Policy and Regulation 5330.04, administering an opioid antidote. This is just a revision for us as well. The documents now reflect greater detail based on guidance we have received with regard to such things as physicians' standing orders for administering opioid antidotes, antidote replacement guidelines, because they do expire. We have to make sure that, just like with all medications, we have an eye on those expiration dates, and the limitation of liability attached to administering the antidote. We know that here in New Jersey, the thrust and the focus is on saving lives, not saving a life and then arresting the individual. So the fact that people would call for help without that fear of reprisal or liability is actually encouraging because it does save lives here in our Garden State. Policy and Regulation 5610 deals specifically with suspension of children. And that policy reflects the new legislation that requires school principals to convene meetings between a student and appropriate school personnel after a student has experienced multiple suspensions or may perhaps even be subject to a proposed expulsion from the public school setting, and that we work with children to attempt to identify any behavioral or health difficulties that they may be experiencing. This is something we're actually very good at, but it's nice to see that New Jersey has a policy in place because it does help serve and protect and get children the services and help that they need. Policy 5620, expulsion, very similar to the proposed revisions that I just mentioned in the suspension policy. So I will not repeat them. They're actually identical. And then policy and regulation 8320, personnel records. This is a little bit of a twist in public employment records here in New Jersey. And based on New Jersey legislation, there have been revisions now to the Open Public Records Act to include certain public or certain employee information that is now subject to open requests. Not highly confidential types of things, but certainly position held or salary or payroll records, length of service, those types of things. The amount of a pension that might be received, a date of separation from a school district are all now subject to the Open Public Records Act. And that's a wrap up.
Okay, which brings us to unfinished business. At last meeting, Justin put the board on notice that he was going to bring a motion to rescind. So Justin, you're up.
You're on mute.
Thank you, Al.
No problem.
I move to rescind the board's decision on August 11, 2020 to remove Columbus Day from the Columbus Day holiday.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Jessica seconds. Discussion?
I have a very big problem with this.
All right, wait. Justin's first, because it's his motion.
Sorry, I didn't see.
Thank you, Cormac. First, for the benefit of the public, I want to let everyone know that I've read every email that has been provided to the board, both in favor of and against this motion and concerning this issue generally. From all those emails, it seems to me there's a little bit of confusion as to how we got here and where we are. So I want to briefly try and clear that up. Back at the August meeting, a motion was made to remove Columbus from the Columbus Day holiday. No notice of the motion was given to the board. No notice of the motion was given to the public. The motion was accompanied by allegations of salacious conduct that occurred apparently 600 years ago. And as I recall, it was also accompanied with the suggestion that if one didn't vote in favor of the motion, they somehow were embracing that conduct or supporting that salacious conduct. After some procedural missteps, we had a vote and the motion passed 8-1, with my vote being the only no vote. Fast forward 1 month, at the September meeting.
7-1.
I'm sorry?
7-1.
I apologize, Jose. I thought it was 8-1. Fast forward to September. One of the members of the public asked the board, and I apologize, I don't remember who it was, asked the board to reconsider its decision. And at the meeting, Carmine agreed to take it under consideration. Following that meeting, I reached out to Carmine to discuss with him how he intended to proceed. He indicated to me that he would entertain the motion, and we agreed on a procedure to move forward with the motion. That procedure involved giving notice to the board and the public at last month's meeting in October, and me making this motion here today at this meeting. I want to be crystal clear. At the time of the August meeting, the name of the holiday on our district calendar was Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day, or vice versa. I'm not exactly sure which one. And my goal is to correct what I believe was a mistake by this board and simply to restore the status quo. That is, put Columbus's name back into the Columbus Day holiday. Presently, as a result of the board's action in August, the holiday is Indigenous Peoples and Explorers Day. I also want to briefly let everyone know the reasons why I voted against the motion in the first place. Number one, the issue had no business coming before the board in my view. And I don't say that because I don't believe the board had authority to consider it. We vote on the calendar every year. And so I don't question the board's authority to do what it did, but I nevertheless do not believe it had any business coming before the board. I first ran for a board seat 3 years ago and lost. Columbus Day never came up in that election. I ran again 2 years ago with at least 2 other candidates. Columbus Day never came up in that election. Last year, at least 4 candidates ran for 3 seats. Columbus Day never came up. And in the intervening 10 months, again, Columbus Day never came up. It simply was not an issue of any concern to the public, at least as far as I could tell. Certainly the board had not received any communications, and I was not aware that any board member had any concern about it until we had a motion at the August board meeting. Secondly, on that point, if there is an issue that any member of this board feels so strongly about as to bring a motion before the board, I believe it is incumbent upon that member to reach out to his or her fellow board members and to give notice to the public. So everyone has a full opportunity to consider it and the public has an opportunity to comment. Number 2, I firmly believe that we do not learn from history. We do not change history by erasing history. And number 3, Columbus Day became a federal holiday in 1937 under Franklin Delano Roosevelt. It became a federal holiday as much for Italian Americans and Catholic Americans as it did for the man. And so to me, removing Columbus from the Columbus Day holiday is an affront to those groups. Those are the reasons I voted against the motion back in August. And those are the reasons why I'll be voting in favor of rescinding it here today. And I would encourage all my colleagues to do the same.
You finished?
Thank you.
Lorianne?
I would like to start by saying that I did, in fact, reach out to, I believe, all the board members telling them I was going to be discussing this. I have actually spoken to Superintendent Moore about this numerous times since I was on the board. This is not the first time I have brought it up. It was the first time I chose to bring it up to a vote because I felt that it was such a time that his diary has been made public. His words have been certified. I feel that as a board, it is our job to protect children. It is not our job to change history. I fully agree with you on that. However, when you're talking about a man, and I'm sorry, there's no way to be polite about this, but he directly told the people under him that gang raping children is the best way to control their father. He sold children to pedophiles. He acknowledged that grown men find 8-year-old girls and boys extremely sexually attractive. These are his words in his diary. He was recalled and put in prison because of his bloody acts. I understand we don't change history, but we do not have to hold a man up who committed genocide. That would be like creating Hitler Day. It's the same thing. And you're telling every child in this district that because someone is famous, it's okay to put them on a pedestal. Because someone is famous, it's okay if they rape you. Because someone is famous, it's okay if they touch you inappropriately. And my problem is that as people have come forward this year, so many women have come forward and said, I have been sexually abused. I have been attacked at work. I am not safe in my own workplace. We have to acknowledge that what we do as a district affects how our children feel. By keeping a man who abused women and children on our calendar, we are saying and empowering those who have subjugated and abused women and children throughout history. I'm not saying we don't teach him. I'm not saying that he didn't do great things. I'm saying his name does not belong on a calendar, and we don't honor a person who has abused women. Otherwise, we're telling our girls and our children that someone famous can abuse you and it's okay because they're famous. And I have a problem with that because it's our job to protect children. As far as putting Columbus Day on the calendar as response, as you said, to Catholics and Italians, to me, that would be saying that somehow Catholics and Italians are the superior race, I'm sorry, nationality and religion over others, because we don't have Puerto Rican Day. We don't have Juana Day. We don't have Chinese Day. We don't celebrate Columbus and have a day off our school calendar for one nationality as opposed to others. So we can't just say that it's because it's Catholic and Italian. That would be very wrong. If you want to celebrate the man's accomplishments, that's one thing. But to say we're doing it because it's an Italian or a Catholic holiday would actually be extremely discriminatory towards every other nationality, because we don't have days off for any other nationality. I understand that, you know, as you said, it was decided to make it a federal holiday as part of a negotiation. It was a plea bargain. It was a negotiation between a president to make something a federal holiday. Our high school does not, in fact, celebrate Columbus Day at all. They do not get the day off. It is not on the calendar. This is not something that has to be on the calendar at all. Many school districts do not have Columbus Day off. We do not have to have Columbus Day off. I have no problem keeping a day off on the calendar. I have a problem telling our children that we are going to celebrate a man who abused children, who sold children to pedophiles, who raped and allowed and encouraged his people below him to gang rape children. Literally, he wrote in his diary that if you rape an innocent girl of a young age, their fathers will fall into line and you will not have any other problems. He also committed genocide. I mean, these were things that were not known about him because Spain had held his diaries. As his diaries came out and we've learned more, we have learned more about him. And I think that we owe it to the children in this district to let them know that we respect their rights more than we do a person's name, that we can honor the explorers and the discoverers without holding fast to it's okay if someone famous abuses you. And that's why I put it out there, is that there have been so many women and children and men who have been sexually abused in the workplace, in schools, in college campuses, and around the world. And in America, it is very commonplace. And the more we hold up these people who abuse children on our calendar when we're supposed to protect them, we're not protecting them. We're telling the children that their rights are superseded by fame and fortune. So I say that we need to keep his name off the calendar or completely remove the day completely off the calendar.
Any other discussion?
I'd like to add to that. Number one, it's a federal holiday, and all federal holidays that we have off are on our calendar. Number two, this is proof that nobody looks at the online school calendar, because everybody that wrote in seemed to have thought that Indigenous People Day was never on the calendar, which it had been since day one. Number three, I guarantee you, the children do not look at the online school calendar. It is not all that easy to find. Nobody is telling the children to celebrate the day. We have that day off as a professional development day for the teachers. As somebody who is of Sicilian descent, it has a lot of meaning for us Sicilians. It is less about the person who, by the way, some of the things that are being said about his diary are taken out of context. He also said about the people that he found in the Bahamas that they were beautiful people and brought them back to Spain to baptize them so they wouldn't be enslaved. The people that he murdered and all of that, I'm not justifying it. It was a rival tribe that attacked his people while he was bringing the others to Spain. So there's two sides of the story. Nobody was there to confirm what actually happened, and he was dropped of his charges. Getting back to the importance to the Sicilian people. I had even talked to my grandmother about this. My grandmother's gonna be 102 in January, okay? She married my grandfather, who was 100% Sicilian. He was of darker skin, and she was a pioneer. of her time, and I'm very proud of her. And I'm sorry if I'm getting emotional, but this really hits home with me. The Italian people didn't even like the Sicilians. They were dark. They were referred to as gypsies. They were treated like dirt. And they found the same sort of persecution when they first came to the United States. It was so bad that when my grandmother started dating my grandfather, she was afraid to tell her parents what part of Italy his family was from. And it wasn't until they fully accepted him that she let them know that he was Sicilian. When the Sicilians were here, they were treated just as badly as a lot of immigrants, as a lot of Catholics, and as a lot of people of color, and a bunch of them were hung. Columbus, the Statue of Columbus, was a peace offering to those people. So to a lot of people who do celebrate it, and nobody's forcing anybody to not celebrate it, but to those who do celebrate it, it is very symbolic of inequality. Not maybe on the level that most people could relate to, but certainly for people like me. My father, who is also Sicilian and darker, who has been called names because he's been darker, who has been treated like dirt by some members of our family, he has seen that kind of discrimination too. And I find it very insulting, some of the accusations to people who think that the Italians that celebrate Columbus Day are racist. And I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
I just want to say for the record, Jess, I just want to tell you that I happen to be 50% third generation Sicilian. Both my grandparents on my father's side are Sicilian. They are darker skinned. I fully celebrate Columbus Day as part of, I was raised to celebrate it. I no longer celebrate it. I cannot celebrate a man. And I understand how you feel about celebrating your race. And that's wonderful. That's wonderful. But we do not celebrate any particular nationality day. We don't have St. Patrick's Day off. That if you want more holidays, that is a go to the government and ask for more holidays. This is not a place for a Board of Ed meeting. There are many holidays that we have off are on the calendar. We do not have every federal holiday off. We do not need to have every federal holiday off. This is beyond code of ethics. We need to move on. All right. We do not have every federal holiday off. Why are we celebrating one nationality above others?
You're not celebrating one nationality above others.
We don't have the federal holidays that celebrate any other nationality off. No, we don't. Why do we have a holiday celebrated Italians, but not any other holiday? If you guys are all...
We're not celebrating. It's the Italians using Columbus Day as their day to commemorate these 11 people that got hung in 1890.
It was actually 20.
I want everyone out there. Wait.
But that was not when Columbus Day was established. Columbus Day was not established.
Well, I'm telling you how the tradition has changed through the years. I encourage everyone to watch Vendetta on HBO. It's got the whole entire story.
Carmen, that was a one day off by a president.
No, it was not a one day off.
I had my choice to speak. Justin had his choice to speak.
And I am supporting this because I made an error on that August meeting. When there was no second, you should not have been allowed to make your statement. It should have been dead in the water. So that's on me. That was my mistake. That should have never been up. It should have never been there. And
so you are saying that while we have no other national day on our holiday, on our calendar,
we need to move on.
This is not a back and forth. You had your opportunity to comment. Carmine, I'd ask that you just offer to anyone else who wants to comment, let them comment.
Anybody else? All right, roll call.
Mr. Gabriel?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzo?
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes.
Mrs. Munley?
Yeah.
Mr. Kinney?
Yes.
Mrs. Quinones?
No.
Mr. Capagrosso?
Yes. Do we have a motion to approve the board goals as follows? Motion? Anybody?
Motion.
All right, Kelly, is there a second? All right, Kiara. Any discussion on any of the goals? It shouldn't be. All right, roll call.
Mr. DeGabriel,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzo,
Yes.
Mrs. DeMayo,
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico,
Yes.
Mrs. Munley,
Yes.
Mr. Kinney,
Yes.
Mrs. Quinones,
Yes.
Mr. Capagrasso.
Yes. Is there any new business? All right, then public comment. I believe there's one person.
Yes, there is one. I will let him in now. It's Mr. Waskis. Hey, Rob, are you there?
I am, yes.
Okay.
Rob, I just want to say, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. And I'll tell you 30 seconds before.
Thank you. I don't think I'll need 5 minutes, but I appreciate it.
I'm giving you 5 minutes.
Thank you.
It'll start whenever you're ready.
All right. Good evening, members of the Board of Education. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak. My comment is addressed to Superintendent Moore. Mr. Moore, over the course of the last 3 months, you've been asked several times what your plan was to open schools up again. At last month's Board of Ed meeting, you stated that your number one goal was to develop and monitor a comprehensive school reopening plan. You have thus far failed to satisfactorily answer any of the questions or demonstrate that you have constructed any sort of plan whatsoever. Instead, you speak in vague generalities using phrases such as looking at certain indicators or monitoring activity rates, or my personal favorite, one that invokes images of a zombie apocalypse, it's creeping north. Such nebulous language is indicative of a disturbing lack of planning. The 14-day moving average of positivity rate sits below 5%, putting us in the lower risk of transmission in schools category, according to the CDC. On average, over 2,600 people are admitted to the hospital every day in New Jersey, and last month, on average, less than 2% had COVID. On average, over 180 people die every day in New Jersey, unfortunately. And last month, on average, less than 1.5% had COVID. Are cases going up? Of course they are. 4 days ago, New Jersey tested over 100,000 people, and yet the positivity rate was only 3.2%, the same as it was back in June. You said we have the highest level of infection seen, but the actual data does not support your position. Morris County has still not had a single confirmed outbreak or linked case in its entire school system. Mitigation activities have been implemented, and by your own admission, transmission rates are extremely low in our community. Mount Olive just expanded in-person learning last month. Roxbury is bringing their little ones back 5 days a week later this month. So here we go. I don't actually expect you to be able or willing to answer this question, except to once again evade it with meaningless abstractions such as cases are rising, surging, spiking, peaking, or whatever the fear verb du jour is. But point blank, Mr. Moore, what criteria, metrics, thresholds, and data are you using to make the reopening decision in our school district? And since it looks like I have about 45 seconds left, I'd like to add a postscript. Kudos, Carmine, to admitting that a mistake was made. I think that will go a long way into increasing the trust of the board among the members of the community. And finally, I would like to also wish best of luck in retirement to Mr. Moran. I was fortunate enough to have him as a music instructor when I was a member of the Long Valley Middle School. So thank you again for the opportunity to speak, and I look forward to Mr. Moore's response.
Thank you.
Would you like me to address that?
Well, I'd rather you, since he directed it directly at you.
So I said, would you like me to address that?
Yes.
Yeah. As a board and as a superintendent, this has probably been the most tremendous and awesome responsibility we have had as a board, and certainly in my career. When we look at a pandemic and the havoc that it can wreak, undeniably so, our first order of business is to provide as safe an environment for our students and their faculty, which then in turn reduces the risk to the students' families and to the families of our faculty. One of the biggest challenges this summer was to get folks comfortable with the notion of stepping inside a public school building. And I've said it before, when I look at the degree to which our faculty returned, is the reason we were able to open up school. And I thank them from the bottom of my heart, each and every opportunity that I get. From my seat, I see the havoc that the coronavirus wreaks on people of all ages. It simply doesn't discriminate. It infects children. It infects young adolescents. It affects adults, both younger adults and older adults as well. Our goal this year is to provide a continuity of instruction amid the most challenging medical times of most of our lives, if not all of our lives. And I'm going to remain steadfast in my commitment to keep our children as safe as possible. Perhaps our rates are low because we don't have a lot of children in the class. Perhaps if we open up school too early, that will create multiple contacts within a class to the point where children are now sent home for a 14-day period. That's not a chance I'm willing to take during a notable surge in cases here in New Jersey. It begins as several hundred cases a day. It moves up to perhaps several thousand cases a day. When I look at the fact that our case rate in New Jersey is the highest it's been since April when school buildings were closed, I am going to err on the side of caution. And when we see our state, our county, and surrounding counties go back into a green level, we will resume our internal dialogues about bringing children back to school. But right now, during a surge, in my opinion, it's not the time to do it. Thank you, Carmine.
All right, does anybody, since this is the end of the meeting, does anybody have any comments they would like to make? All I want to say is, I just want to remind everybody that next month is what they call a lame duck board. And according to the NJSBA, this is what it says about it. After the voters have elected a new board, the permitted activities of the outgoing lame duck board during the short period between the annual school election and the organization meeting are limited. However, occasionally there are matters that the outgoing board must address during this short lame duck period between the school election and the organization meeting of the succeeding board. Routine actions such as the approval of purchase order for goods and services or the approval of the use of facilities are examples of matters that may properly be handled by the outgoing board. Other matters, significant matters, including the approval of individual contracts, the awarding of salary increases or increments for the next succeeding school year, may be inappropriate. So we're limited in our scope next month, just to do routine business to keep the district working. Just want to remind everybody. Comments, anyone?
Can I just say
Yes,
something
ma'am.
To the public? I just want to, well, first I want to say thank you to all the teachers. Again, I feel like it can't be said enough. We see how hard you're all working. We know how hard you're all working, and we appreciate how hard you're all working. I really can't thank you for your dedication and your resilience enough. And, you know, unfortunately, I had witnessed a parent berate a teacher during one of the Google Meet in her classroom. And I just wanted to say that I find that to be completely inappropriate to do in front of the children. If there are parents that were nearby, like I was, I found it horrible, to be quite frank, demeaning. And I just ask that if anybody does have an issue with a teacher or anything that's going on with your child in class, that you reach out to that teacher privately through email or the administrators. Please don't subject the children to that kind of behavior. It's not a good example for them. And certainly the teachers don't deserve it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Jess.
Yes, Lauren.
I want to give a shout out to all the teachers, students, faculty, staff, administration for the amazing job they're doing during this pandemic. I know it's hard. I know it's not easy. You're doing something you were not really hired to do or ever thought you'd be doing by teaching online and working remotely. I don't think anyone ever thought we'd still be here this many months later. I'm pretty sure we have now been locked down in 5, 6, 7 years. At least it feels that way. Someone recently asked me what century it is, and I was like, I have no idea. So we've been all locked up for a long time. You're doing amazing. And the normalcy the teachers bring to the children's lives every day is amazing. The children are very lucky to have such amazing teachers. Shout out to our Spanish teacher for going above and beyond and getting into the, doing some amazing things. It's absolutely fantastic. I love hearing stuff like that, and great job. And all the teachers, I don't think I've heard anything about any teacher in our district, any administrator, our superintendents, our staff, our principals, our assistant principals, janitors. Major shout out to janitors. Your job is so important right now. And everyone else working so hard to make sure that we as a school continue to function well. While some schools are closing down, our safety procedures, our cleanliness is keeping any case of COVID from becoming a problem. And shout out to everyone, and shout out to the teachers and the board members for everything you've done, you will do, and the community for supporting you guys.
Thank you, Lauren.
Anyone else? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Jessica. Second, Lorianne. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Have a good evening, everyone. Drive safely.
Stay safe, everyone.
Good evening, all.
Thank you, Carmen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Randy, you good?